What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Maverick Raven coming at you with another one. And I gotta tell you, I love President Trump. But if there was one thing that he messed up on, in my opinion, it was the COVID vaccine thing. Personally, I didn't get the vaccine. That's a personal medical decision that you have to make with your doctor. And you have to obviously do what's best for you. I don't preach, medical advice because it's over YouTube. If it was in person, it'd be something different, but it's over YouTube, so I can't say, my personal views on that because they get real, sensitive. But the fact remains that the COVID vaccine was kind of rushed, and because of what COVID represented or what they said it represented, a lot of things were done in a rush that normally would never have been done. So here's the problem. We've got RFK Jr. running as an independent this November, and he's got a following. You older people can remember a guy named Ross Perot, right? And he was a bit of a spoiler. He would always run as an independent candidate. Well, not always, but he ran like 2 or 3 times as an independent candidate, and he kept getting a good percentage of the vote. Remember, 2, 3, 4% is huge because that's something that's a percentage block that you're taking away from someone else. So if you've got one independent candidate, which we don't, we've got at least 3, and if Nikki Haley throws in her hat, it's going to be 4. But you've got so many independent candidates that imagine if they all get like 1, 2, 3, 4%. Now all of a sudden it's a dead heat between Biden and Trump. It's absolutely insanity. This November is going to be absolute insanity, no doubt about it. It says Trump clearly hasn't learned from his COVID era mistakes, RFK Jr. says. Former president's praise of swiftly bringing the COVID vaccine to market draws the ire of RFK Jr. during the State of the Union address. Yeah, I wasn't a fan. I wasn't a fan of the COVID vaccine, but it got it got speed tracked along. Biden claimed that COVID vaccines are now helping cancer patients during his State of the Union address on March 7th. But it was a response on Truth Social from former President Donald Trump that drew the ire of independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. During the address, Biden said the pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to help beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. That's what America does. Yeah, that's some nice framing there, Biden. Dude, I swear, I don't know how these people can I don't know how they can sleep at night. I don't know how they can look at themselves in the mirror. I don't know how they can lie their asses off the way they do. That's all it takes to be a politician, man. To be able to lie your ass off and be okay with it, and sleep at night and basically lie to people's faces. It's really disgusting. That's why Trump is such a breath of fresh air. President Trump wrote, "The pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to help beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. You're welcome, Joe. 9-month approval time versus 12 years that it would have taken you." Damn. Yeah, all in caps. He's serious. An outspoken critic of President Trump's COVID response and the Operation Warp Speed program that escalated the availability of COVID vaccines, Mr. Kennedy said on X, formerly known as Twitter, that Donald Trump clearly hasn't learned from his COVID era mistakes. Excuse me. He fails to recognize how ineffective his Warp Speed vaccine is, as the 9th shot is being recommended to seniors. Even more troubling is the documented harm being caused by the shot to so many innocent children and adults who are suffering myocarditis, pericarditis, and brain inflammation, Mr. Kennedy remarked. This has been confirmed by a CDC-funded study of 99 million people. Instead of bragging about its speedy approval, we should be honestly and transparently debating the abundant evidence that this vaccine may have caused more harm than good. I look forward to debating both Trump and Biden on September 16th in San Marcos, Texas. Let's see if Joe even goes, because I don't think he'll go. Why would he go? He's not. Let me tell you, these people aren't intelligent people, But the only thing that Joe has to do at a debate is lose more ground, because he's not gonna get any gotchas or any clips that are gonna be played the next day about how outstanding of an orator he is, right? Because the guy can barely hold a sentence together, much less a cohesive thought. Mr. Kennedy announced in April 2023 that he would challenge President Biden for the 2024 Democratic Party presidential nomination before declaring his run as an independent last October, claiming that the Democratic National Committee was rigging the primary. That is another video for another day. I know all you Bernie bros out there are pissed off, but that's your party. That's your party. It's not our party doing that. Since the early stages, not that I'm proud of my party right now either. Since the early stages of his campaign, Mr. Kennedy has generated more support than pundits expected from conservatives, moderates, and independents, resulting in speculation that he could take votes away from President Trump. And be a spoiler. Be a spoiler, dude. He's not going to win, but he might be a spoiler, which is not going to be good. Many Republicans continue to seek a reckoning over the government-imposed pandemic lockdowns and vaccine mandates. President Trump's defense of Operation Warp Speed, the program he rolled out in May 2020 to spur the development and distribution of COVID-19 vaccines amid the pandemic, remains a sticking point for some of his supporters. Operation Warp Speed featured a partnership between the government, the military, and the private sector, with the government paying for millions of vaccine doses to be produced. President Trump released a statement in March 2021 saying, "I hope everyone remembers when they're getting the COVID-19 vaccine that if I wasn't president, you wouldn't be getting that beautiful shot for 5 years at best, and probably wouldn't be getting it at all. I hope everyone remembers." Man, he is really proud of that COVID vaccine thing. Jeez. President Trump said about the COVID-19 vaccine in an interview on Fox News in March 2021, "It works incredibly well, 95%, maybe even more than that. I would recommend it, and I would recommend it to a lot of people that don't want to get it, and a lot of those that voted for me, frankly." Yeah, I voted for you, and I'm going to vote for you a third time now, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to get that vaccine, man. I'm sorry, but I don't agree with it, But again, we have our freedoms, and we have to live by that, and I agree with that also. But it's a great vaccine, it's a safe vaccine, and it's something that works. On many occasions, President Trump has said that he is not in favor of vaccine mandates. That's good. That's good. Thank God for that. An environmental attorney, Mr. Kennedy, founded Children's Health Defense, a nonprofit that aims to end childhood health epidemics by promoting vaccine safeguards, among other initiatives. Last year, Mr. Kennedy told podcaster Joe Rogan that ivermectin was suppressed by the FDA so that the COVID vaccine could be granted emergency use authorization. He has criticized Big Pharma, vaccine safety, and government mandates for years. Since launching his presidential campaign, Mr. Kennedy has made his stances on the COVID-19 vaccines and vaccines in general a frequent talking point. Yeah, and I'm not even angry at the guy. The fact is that he's got a viewpoint about these vaccines, and he always has. I remember him from years ago talking about how vaccines need to be explored more. And frankly, I agree with him. We're hoping that these vaccines are going to prevent things, and in some cases they're causing more harm than good. At what line do you say, okay, this is good for an entire society? Because let me just put it like this, okay? We panicked for the COVID pandemic. Most people panicked. I didn't panic, but most people were panicking. That had about a 99% survival rate. Really, it was a little bit higher than that. It's 99 point something, right? But then you got comorbidities and the elderly and this and that, blah, blah, whatever. Depending on which demographic you were, right? But for the most part, 99%. Now, there's, in our country, about 340 million people? I say that because of the undocumented people, the illegal aliens that like to sneak into our country. There's what, 340 million people, 350 million people? What is an acceptable loss to you as an individual? What is an acceptable loss of life? And that's what these people are dealing with. They're dealing with the vaccine might have this and this and this side effect, but we need to weigh it against how many lives it'll save versus how many lives it might ruin or destroy. And again, I'm not giving medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving any medical advice whatsoever. So YouTube, please listen to me very clearly. I am not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. But you always should weigh the pros and cons to any decision, especially something that you're putting into your body. That's just me, though. I would argue that the science is very clear right now that vaccines caused a lot more problems than they averted, Mr. Kennedy said on Piers Morgan Uncensored last April. And if you look at the countries that did not vaccinate, they had the lowest death rates. They had the lowest COVID and infection rates. Additional data shows a direct correlation between excess deaths and high vaccination rates in developed countries, he said. President Trump and Mr. Kennedy have similar views on topics like protecting the U.S.-Mexico border and ending the Russia-Ukraine war. And this is exactly why he might steal votes from people that would normally have voted for Trump. And that's the problem that we're facing right now. And it's a big problem. Because do we really want another Biden presidency? Really? Does anybody want that? Because, yeah, weirdos on Twitter want that. But that's because they voted for him and the cognitive dissonance is too much. You know, it's too much to deal with. But the reality of the situation, our economy sucks right now. You know, like I hate to say it, but it sucks. I have never been so overdrawn in my life. That's all I'm going to say about that. Trump, I don't think I was overdrawn one time. With Joe Biden, I'm overdrawn like every month now. It's absolutely insane. COVID-19 is a topic where Mr. Kennedy and President Trump seem to differ the most. Former President Donald J. Trump intended to drain the swamp when he took office in 2017, but he was intimidated by bureaucrats at federal agencies and did not accomplish that objective, Mr. Kennedy said on February 5th. Speaking at a voter rally in Tucson, where he collected signatures to get on the Arizona ballot, the independent presidential candidate said President Trump was earnest when he vowed to drain the swamp, but it was business as usual during his term. I disagree with that. I think what ended up happening was Donald Trump surrounded himself with people that he thought knew what was going on, and I think he trusted their judgment to his detriment, to our detriment too. Like John Bolton, for example. The article speaks about him right now. John Bolton, who President Trump appointed as a national security advisor, is the template for a swamp creature, Mr. Kennedy said. I agree. That's my opinion of Bolton as well. Scott Gottlieb, who President Trump named to run the FDA, was Pfizer's business partner and eventually returned to Pfizer, Mr. Kennedy said. See, that's a problem. That type of thing is a problem. I wouldn't allow that either. Mr. Kennedy said that President Trump had more lobbyists running federal agencies than any president in U.S. history. I can neither confirm nor deny that, so I'm not going to get on it. But if he says it happened, it probably happened because RFK Jr. is a pretty stand-up dude, I think. You can't reform them when you've got the swamp creatures running them, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something different, Mr. Kennedy said. During the COVID-19 pandemic, President Trump did not ask the questions that he should have, he believes. President Trump knew that lockdowns were wrong and then agreed to lockdowns, Mr. Kennedy said. He also knew that hydrochloroquine worked, he said. He said it, Mr. Kennedy explained, adding that he was eventually rolled over by Dr. Anthony Fauci and his advisors. Mary Jo Perry, a longtime advocate for vaccine choice and a Trump supporter, thinks votes will be at a premium come Election Day, particularly because the independent and third-party field is becoming more competitive. Just said this, didn't I? Ms. Perry, president of Mississippi Parents for Vaccine Rights, believes advocates for medical freedom could determine who is ultimately president. She believes that Mr. Kennedy is pulling votes from Trump because of the former president's stance on the vaccines. Yeah, and honestly, that's what I'm afraid of. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. People care about medical freedom. It's an important issue here in Mississippi and across the country, Ms. Perry told the Epic Times. Trump should admit he was wrong about Operation Warp Speed and that COVID vaccines have been dangerous. That would make a difference among people he has offended. Yeah, I agree with that too. President Trump won't lose enough votes to Mr. Kennedy about Operation Warp Speed and COVID vaccines to have a significant impact on the election, Ohio Republican strategist Wes Farno told the Epic Times. President Trump won in Ohio by 8 percentage points in both 2016 and 2020. The Ohio Republican Party endorsed President Trump for the nomination in 2024. The positives of a Trump presidency far outweigh the negatives, Mr. Farno said. People are more concerned about their wallet and the economy. Yeah, God bless. Oh, man. Preach it. Preach it. Preach it from the rafters. They are asking themselves if they were better off during President Trump's term compared to since Biden took office. Good Lord. The answer to that question is obvious because many Americans are struggling to afford groceries, gas, mortgages, and rent payments. America needs President Trump. Yeah. Multiple national polls back Mr. Farno's view. As of March 6th, the Real Clear Politics average of polls indicate that President Trump has 41.8% support in a five-way race that includes Biden, 38.4%, Mr. Kennedy, 12.7%. Huge for an independent candidate. Huge. Independent Cornel West, 2.6%. See, that's more indicative and representative of what an independent normally gets. And Green Party nominee Jill Stein, 1.7%. And again, Haley was kind of hinting that she will jump back in. And she's got a lot of money, dude. A lot of money. She's got a lot of Democratic people backing her, you know? She's got a lot of super PACs in there. A Pew Research Center study conducted among 10,133 U.S. adults from February 7th to the 11th showed that Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents, 42%, are more likely than Republicans and GOP-leaning independents, 15%, to say they have received an updated COVID vaccine. The poll also reported that just 28% of adults say they have received the updated COVID inoculation. The peer-reviewed multinational study of more than 99 million vaccinated people that Mr. Kennedy referenced in his X post on March 7th was published in the Vaccine Journal on February 12th. It aimed to evaluate the risk of 13 adverse events of special interest, AESI, following COVID-19 vaccination. The AESIs span three categories: neurological, hematologic, which is blood, and cardiovascular. The study reviewed data collected from more than 99 million vaccinated people from 8 nations: Argentina, Australia, Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, New Zealand, and Scotland, looking at risks up to 42 days after getting the shots. 3 vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna's mRNA vaccines, as well as AstraZeneca's viral vector jab, were examined in the study. Researchers found higher than expected cases that they deemed met the threshold to be potential safety signals for multiple AESIs, including for Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS, cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, CVST, myocarditis, and pericarditis. A safety signal refers to information that could suggest a potential risk or harm that may be associated with a medical product. Man, I'm telling you, this is crazy, and it's out there, y'all. So you guys got to get this. I'll link this in the description. Don't worry about it. But you guys got to do this research, man. It's your body. It's your life, you guys. The study identified higher incidences of neurological, cardiovascular, and blood disorder complications than what the researchers expected. President Trump's role in Operation Warp Speed and his continued praise of the COVID vaccine remain a concern for some voters, including those who still support him. Krista Cobb is a 40-year-old mother in Western Ohio. She voted for President Trump in 2020 and said she would cast her vote for him this November, but she was stunned when she saw his response to President Biden about the COVID-19 vaccine during the State of the Union address. I love President Trump and support his policies, but at this point, he has to know they, the advisors and health officials, lied about the shot, Ms. Cobb told the Epoch Times. If he continues to promote it, especially after all the hearings they've had about it in Congress, the side effects and cover-ups on Capitol Hill, at what point does he become the same as the people who have lied? Ms. Cobb added. Wow. That's as I have heard and loved the saying, that's a good point, well made. I think he should distance himself from talk about Operation Warp Speed and even admit that he was wrong, that the vaccines have not had the impact he was told they would have. If he did that, people would respect him even more. It's true, and I agree. But you know what the problem is, you guys? I bet trying to get President Trump to do anything is about one of the hardest things in this planet. President Trump probably has a sack, and he probably sits on the sack. It's like a sack of grapefruits. And he probably sits on that sack, and when somebody tells him, hey, President, I think you should do this, this, and this, Mr. President, he probably goes, you know what, I'm going to do what I want to, which was completely different than anything his advisor said. And that's me just thinking what it seems like, because he's a boss like that. That's the aura he gives off. But anyways, guys, that's the video. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment. I look at all of them. I reply to all of them. Thanks a lot for spending time with me. Your time is invaluable, and the fact that you spent it with me tells me everything. And it tells me so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. Be safe, be good to one another, and stay based.